everybody out there in YouTube world, this is your girl Mary, and today I'm here to talk to you guys about my story time of my labor and delivery. So I've seen so many interesting videos on YouTube, but I decided I might as well go ahead and tell my interesting story too. So my labor and delivery all started while I was in my son's room. I was putting up a picture, well, I'll put a picture right here, but I was putting up his name on the wall, had his name and had the little animals going around it and everything. But what I was doing, I was actually like on a chair, like jumping on the chair and then jumping down, and going up the chair and then jumping down. And so when I finally finished it all complete, I said, look at this, it's completely done. And then I went ahead and jumped down and my water broke. So I was like, oh my goodness, the baby is coming. So at this point, I'm like 38, 39 weeks around that time. So I'm early, but not too early. So I called my husband, I'm like, babe, my water just broke. So he didn't believe me. So he walks in the room. He's like, oh man. So, he's calling everybody up saying, oh, Mary's going to have the baby soon. Her water just broke. And we were asking people to, be praying for us and stuff. So I go into the bathroom, and at this point my pants are completely drenched. It looks like I actually just walked straight through, a river. So I'm like, okay, let me change them. So I changed them. I said, well, let me go ahead and put on a pad. I know TMI. So I went ahead and put on a pad, and I was like, okay, cool. So we're heading downstairs, we got in the car, and we're heading to the hospital. So there's no parking spots in the front of the building, so my husband, he drops me off at the front of the emergency room. So I go inside, and there was a guy there. I think it was pretty empty. So I said to him, I was like, hi, my water just broke, and I'm probably getting ready to go in labor. So the guy looks at me like this. And he looks me up, looks me down, and mind you, my pants are soaking wet. Oh my gosh, he's getting ready to have the baby. So he gets ready. I don't know if he was getting ready to kind of jump over the counter, but then I guess maybe he thought about it. So he went around the corner, he got me a wheelchair, and he told me to, sit down, that baby's getting ready to come. So he opens up the door, and he's like pushing me, like literally running down the hallway with me. And there's like doctors and nurses, and there's like people, in the hallway. He's telling them to move, get out the way, get out the way, get out the way. So we go ahead and we get into the elevator. He swings me around. He's like, it's okay, sweetie, it's okay. You're going to be just fine. So he gets me to the maternity floor, and then he comes around the corner, and he's rushing and running with me. And oh my goodness, I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Maybe he knows more than I do, because I never attended a Lamaze class, So maybe he knows something I know. This is what I'm thinking in my mind. And so he hits me up we get to the nurse's station, and he's like, she's going into labor now. The baby's coming. We got to get a room for her now. And the nurses were talking, and they all stopped, and they just kind of stared at him. And, they asked him, is this your husband? And I'm like, no, it's not my husband. And they were like, okay, sir, well, we got it from here. And so he taps me on the shoulder. He's like, you're going to be just fine, baby. You're going to be just fine, all right? Take care of that baby. And then he goes downstairs. So that's what happened. So then so the nurses are like, oh, actually, hold on. I'm back. Sorry, I had something on the stove I had cut off real quick. So what happened was, I don't know where I started off, so I'll just talk about the nurse station. So at the nurse's station, the lady is, talking to me. She's trying to see what's going on with me, asking me if I had any contractions, and I'm telling her, no, I'm not having any contractions, and I really don't understand what a contraction is. A lot of people have been trying to explain it to me like it's cramps, but I'm like, at this point, I'm not having any contractions. So she said, well, unfortunately, there's been a lot of deliveries tonight, so we don't have a room for you right now, so we're going to go ahead and get one ready for you. So we're going to have you in the waiting room. So I'm like, okay, cool. So she pushes me into the waiting room. And mind you, the room is completely dark. The only light that's in the room is the TV. So I'm just sitting here, and my water is still like coming out, and now it's like puddles inside of the wheelchair, So my husband finally gets upstairs, and he sees me. He was like, why are you in this dark room? And I'm like, They say they don't have any room for me and I have to, you know, wait. So we're in there, we're just laughing it up about the guy and everything. I'm telling him the story about the guy and he's just laughing and stuff like that. And then so the room is finally ready. So they tell me, go ahead, go in the room, get undressed, and let's go ahead and see what's going on. So they're checking me, and I think I'm about 4 or 5 centimeters, like 4 or 5 centimeters. So, you know, I'm not really that far. So keep that in mind. So we're in there, and then I'm starting to, you know, feel some of the contractions. So I'm like, oh man, I'm starting to feel some contractions. You know, is it possible if I can, you know, get something for it? So, well, let me back up to this point. So before that happened, they had asked me, did I want the midwife or the doctor? So during my visits, I had only seen the doctor. So I was just like, the doctor. But they were like, well, unfortunately, the doctor is not really available right now, so we'll go ahead and give you the midwife. So I said, okay, cool. So my midwife was wild. I would say she was, I wouldn't say wild. She's like a very naturalistic type person, you know, like really into nature and things being natural and organic and stuff like that. So she was, you know, keeping us laughing and stuff like that. And, you know, she was coming in and out, kind of checking on us and see how things were progressing. So, you know, I started to feel the contractions. And so they asked me, I asked them if there was anything like pain medicine or something I could do. So they asked me if I wanted an epidural, and I opted out not to for a couple of reasons. A lot of people were telling me that you can get migraines really bad. One person was telling me that, you know, you can be paralyzed if they do it wrong. And of course I have, you know, the midwife who's really pushing for me not to have an epidural, even though I had already made that decision, you know, before delivery that I was going to get one. But I didn't get an epidural pretty much. So they gave me this drug called Demerol, and Demerol was really like lessening. It didn't get rid of the contractions, but it was kind of like slowing it down. So it was at a place that was very comfortable. So the midwife, she had to step out and go check on somebody else. So it's pretty much me and my husband and the nurse. And so the nurse is like, well, why don't you go ahead and start pushing? So I'm like, okay, good, I'm pushing. So we're doing this for about like an hour, 30 minutes, you know, I'm just pushing and pushing. And mind you, I never went to a Lamaze class or anything like that. So the only idea of delivery that I have is essentially the Discovery Channel. So, you know, I'm doing this for a while. And then so finally, I look at the nurse and I'm like, you know, ma'am, like, what's going on? Is the baby crowning? I've been like pushing for like, you know, 45 minutes. Like, what's going on? And so I guess she thought that I didn't see her, but I did. So she looked at my husband like this and was like, ain't nothing happening, nothing happening. So she was like, well, how about we just go ahead and take a break, and I'll come back. So during this time, you know, I'm pretty much in the room alone because I think my husband, he steps out either to the bathroom or like out of the room. I can't remember, but he steps out. So it's just me in the room by myself. And so all of a sudden, I start to hallucinate. So I look and I see Bugs Bunny. I see Tasmanian Devil. I see the Road Runner. I see Miss Piggy. I see just about every big time 80s, 90s, you know, cartoon character lined up in my room. And so Bugs Bunny comes up to me and he says, Mary, you're getting ready to have a contraction and it's going to be really tough. But you can do it. And then he was like, isn't that right, everybody? And everybody was like, yeah, it's right, you can do it. And so I'm looking at Bugs. I'm like, okay, Bugs, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And so the contraction came just like Bugs Bunny said. And so I'm holding on and holding on. And they were like, go, Mary, go, go, go. And the contraction was over. And they were like, yay. Whoa, Mary did it, woo, woo, woo. And it was like confetti and fireworks was going off, and Tasmanian Devil was spinning around in a circle, and Road Runner was just running around. It was just crazy, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I did it. And then, you know, they went away. And then my next contraction happened, you know, like literally like this, and it was painful and it was hurting. So I was buzzing for the nurse. I'm like, ma'am, you know, I need to get some more Demerol. And she was like, well, unfortunately, we can't give you any more Demerol, so you're just going to have to kind of wait it out. So they checked me, And at this particular moment, I'm at like 9.5 centimeters, and I am in some excruciating pain. They're telling me to push, and I'm pushing. They're trying to have me move in different directions to kind of get the baby moving and stuff like that. And at one point in time, my son's heart rate had actually like dropped, so they were actually considering me to have a an emergency cesarean. So it was kind of like, you know, a serious moment, you know. So, you know, my husband had my legs and the other nurse had my legs, and they're all telling me like to push, to push, to push. And then I get to the point where I'm like, you know what, I have to go to the bathroom. And I'm not, you know, so I'm like looking to the nurse. I'm like, you know, nurse, I have to go to the restroom. And she was like, what do you mean you have to go to the restroom? And I'm like, well, I have to go. And she says, well, just go now. And I'm like, no, I have to do number two, you know? And she says, go ahead, that's fine. And I'm like, you know, wait a minute, I'm gonna poop on the table? What? And they were like, yeah, go ahead. So I started pooping, and as I'm doing this, I feel the baby moving. And then I make that connection like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to push. Because the whole time I'm pushing from my stomach, and I'm not really pushing, you know, like they say bearing down, like pooping, you know. So I start to push, and then there's progress. The baby is starting to move, and they're like, oh wow, the baby's starting to move. So I'm like, good. So at this point, you know, I'm starting to get really, really tired. And then my pastor comes in, and she's like, come on, Mary, push the baby out, push the baby out. So I'm like, okay, good, I'm gonna push. So I look up, you know, at my husband, and my husband's holding my legs up like this, and he's not even looking down. He's looking at the wall with his eyes closed, telling me to push. So I guess he's seen something crazy. So I decided to close my eyes too and look to the wall also. So I'm pushing, and boom, the baby comes out. My son is born. So it was really interesting. My midwife was, she was wild, y'all. She was explaining to my husband what was going on, and she had her legs all the way cocked up and was showing, pointing to the places and how his head was coming out. It was kind of interesting. I really like my midwife. So that is what happened with my labor and delivery story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was quite crazy. My son was born healthy. He was, I think, like 7 pounds. 7 pounds. I think he was like 7'7" or 7'11", something like that. But yeah, he was born healthy. There was no problems. I had no further complications after that. So that was my story of my labor and delivery. So, and if you wanted to know, it took a total of 6 hours. So that's the whole time. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please give this video a big thumbs up, and give me a comment down below as to what do you guys think about my labor and delivery story. So until next time, you guys have a blessed day, and I hope to see you guys soon. Alrighty, bye.